Facts, facts, and even more facts. I just can't get enough facts, and I hope you can't either. Because today I'm bringing you some cool Dragon's Dogma 2 weapon facts, references, and interesting details you may not know. And then after that, I'll be going over some weapons that had their designs changed from DD1 to DD2. And finally, go over some weapons I really hope come back to the game in the future. I've been looking forward to making this video for a while now, and it's finally here. So sit back, open your mind, and absorb some facts with our first category. Facts about weapons. Starting off this list, we have the two silver swords in the game, the silver rapier and silver cinquedilla. What's weird about these swords is the material they're made out of. Unless they're mixed with steel or some other stronger metal, no amount of tempering will make silver strong enough to use as a real weapon. Silver weapons historically are used as mere decoration or ceremonial swords. I briefly mentioned this shield in my Monster Facts video when I was talking about Medusa, but the Daughter of the Evening shield is actually a reference to Perseus' shield in mythology. And on top of that, the name Daughter of the Evening is also a reference to nymphs known as Hesperides, who were referred to as the Daughters of the Evening in Greek mythology. Anyone who has played an old Pokemon game probably know what dowsing is. But in short, it is an old method of using two steel rods to locate things like water and buried treasure. And that's why the dowsing daggers help you find treasure in Dragon's Dogma 2. The Life Taker sword is a sword that is said to have 3 blade cores. The blade core is the softer, more flexible metal on the inside of the sword. Its purpose is to act as a sort of shock absorber, so that the more brittle, hardened steel on the edge doesn't break. And since Life Taker has 3, it means it can endure quite large impacts. This also can imply the sword was originally 3 individual swords that were later forged into one. Pretty sick. Flamberg is a great sword that sports a pretty unique appearance. It's serrated and has a really odd set of spikes protruding from the sides. They may just look like decoration, but these are actually a functional part of the sword. In medieval times, when large swords were used, some swords had an extra set of hand guards for when you needed to place your hands further up the sword. And that's what these are. The further hand placement allowed for more control of the blade, and the hand guards ensured they were safe to some degree. This technique is known as half swording. Sadly, you can't use great swords like this, but I guess we do just fine without it. Almace is a sword infused with ice magic. And while the sword it is based off of may not have an ice enchantment, it is still quite the prolific blade. The sword's namesake is pulled from the French poem The Song of Roland, where the sword is wielded by Turpin, an archbishop. The sword Durendal, which seems to be Almace's counterpart, was also featured in this poem, wielded by the main hero Roland. Could we potentially see a sword that is named after Durendal? There are 3 swords that have spiked handguards: Almace, Cutlass, and Carnation. At first glance, you'd assume they're just to make the sword look metal as fuck. But these are actually to be used as a makeshift set of spiked knuckles, although usually you'd see this more on daggers and knives. Funnily enough, there aren't any daggers in the game that have spiked handguards. The Bardach daggers and Ferme blades both have something in common. They are repurposed spearheads, turned into blades. The first word in their name refers to the original spear weapon they came from. But in the case of the Ferme blades, they were actually designed to be removed and used as close-range daggers as well, similar to their DD2 counterparts. Weapon changes from DD1 to DD2. Now we're going to go over some weapon changes that could be small or could be big. The Bardach daggers. The Bardach daggers are just kind of held different from DD1 to DD2, going from a reverse grip to a forward grip. Griffic Victory. This one is really small and I barely noticed it myself, but the Talon handguard is just switched directions. Heaven's Key. Heaven's Key got a complete overhaul on how it looks, but the old design was later used for another set of daggers in DD2. Almace. Almace had a completely different look in DD1 to DD2. In DD2, it just looked like a cutlass, but with the blue ice effect. But in DD1, it had a completely different look. Here's that now, and here's Almace's new look. Staffs. Almost all the staffs that used to be used by mages in DD1 are a lot smaller now in DD2. I'm guessing they did this to try and distinguish the mage's staffs from the sorcerer's staffs, seeing as sorcerers are supposed to be the more adept version of mage. Weapons I want to see return. These are just going to be any weapons that I personally think are cool and I want to see back in DD2. Tarring weapons. There was a set of weapons in DD1 that inflicted the tarred debilitation. This would basically just coat them in oil and make them prone to igniting and being torched. Really, this would just be a good option as we have many fire attacks in the game that could pair nicely with this. The Berserk weapons. If you didn't know, there was actually a crossover in DD1 with the manga Berserk. This saw the armor and weapon sets of the two main characters, Guts and Griffith, come to the game. They were really cool and honestly, they fit the world of Dragon's Dogma really well. I'd love to see these come back to the game. Although, extremely unlikely. Maces. This is kind of a boring one I want to see back, but I just want to see more maces in the game. I don't think there are enough one-handed maces, and I think there are some cool ones from DD1 that I'd like to see come back. Eden's Warden. Really, the only reason I want this sword to come back is because of the name. I think it sounds really cool. Malignance. Malignance is a frost greatsword from DD1. This could be a great option as we don't have any greatswords in DD2 that have any elemental enchantment on them. And ice isn't a very common one to begin with. So having it on a greatsword would be pretty cool. Well, that's a whole lot of weapons. I really hope more awesome weapons come to us soon, new or old. Little bit of a tangent, but I recently obtained a hammer I was looking for, Cyclopean Thunder, and it is awesome. I was so happy to find it, and that just goes to show how much a cool weapon can do for the game. Finding them or discovering them is really a great feeling, and using them feels even better. Have you found any cool weapons lately? Or just have any weapons you want to talk about? Leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to respond. And with that, I'll be seeing you next time.
Bye bye.
Anyone who's played an old Pokemon game probably know what dowsing is. Piece of shit, you